From London, I'm Rochelle Travers, and this is The Standard.
Refugees are welcome here. This community, our community, our community.
The sound there of some of the thousands of peaceful anti-racism protesters that lined the streets of London and other UK cities yesterday. The show of unity was a response to concerns of further rioting in areas, including Finchley and Walthamstow in the capital, where businesses were boarded up and closed early. However, apart from some minor disturbances in some parts of the country, the expected disorder didn't appear to take place, and the number of anti-racism protesters who took to the streets dwarfed any far-right action. Here's Met Police Commissioner Mark Rowley speaking on Sky News this morning.
It was a massive policing operation. I'm really pleased with how it went, and we put thousands of officers on the street, and I think the show of force from the police, and frankly the show of unity from communities together defeated the challenges that we've seen. And it went off very peacefully last night. A couple of locations we had some local criminals turn out and try and create a bit of antisocial behaviour, and we arrested a few of them. But it was a very successful night, and the fears of sort of extreme right disorder were abated. So a successful operation thanks to communities and police.
I'm now joined by Anthony France, the Evening Standard's crime correspondent. Anthony, just give us an overview of what exactly happened yesterday.
Yes, this obviously follows the disorder that started in Merseyside last week, and it was a right-wing activist and counter-protesters who, under an anti-racism banner, a list had been rumoured to have drawn up 100 places to protest outside centres that help asylum seekers. And in London, there were 4 boroughs where these protests were due to take place. But we saw thousands of people taking to the streets in a peaceful manner to protect those buildings. And they actually won praise from the Scotland Yard chief, Sir Mark Rowley, who said that show of force and unity from ordinary Londoners had faced down the fear from far-right thugs.
The counter-protests outnumbered the far-right ones very significantly, but there were some minor incidents still. Just tell us about those.
Yes, so they were heavily outnumbered, those that did turn up. So in Walthamstow, there were more than 8,000 people who gathered to protect a migrant support centre. And they were shouting, whose streets are streets, say it loud, say it clear, refugees are welcome here. In Finchley, Harrow and also Hounslow, some buildings and shops had closed up early to avoid any trouble. But there were just a few arrests. There were 10 arrests down in Croydon where a group of people had gathered, and they were not connected to either side of the protest or counter-protest, but they had turned up to cause antisocial problems, is how the police describe it.
It's obviously been such a horrible time for ethnic minority groups in light of all of this. People are feeling unsafe and even scared to go outside in some areas. Do you think yesterday's anti-racism protests have helped provide communities with some reassurance?
Yes, I do believe they did. I mean, for most of us observers, we were wondering why most of the trouble seemed to be outside London. Well, London is a city that is very used to having very diverse communities. And what we saw yesterday is people coming out and saying they totally reject the politics of some of these people, what we've seen in other parts of the country. And, I think the vast majority of people in London are law-abiding and respect the police. And I think we saw that yesterday.
The government and police are heavily cracking down on anyone involved with these violent far-right demonstrations. Just give us an idea of how many arrests there have been so far and the results of some of the fast-track justice we've seen.
Yes, well, we're seeing very fast-track justice across the country. The sentences that we're seeing within days of people punching police officers or throwing rocks, we're seeing people being sentenced for violent disorder and receiving, 3 years. And so far, we know that there have been over 400 arrests, and of those, around about 120, that creeps up all the time. People have been charged and put before the courts, and the courts are sending out very strong messages that this sort of violence and thuggery will not be tolerated. These sentences are very, very severe, at a time where we have prison overcrowding. They're literally freeing up spaces in the jails to put these people in there.
Do we think this is the beginning of the end for these far-right protests now, or are more expected still?
We are expecting more protests towards the end of the week, towards the weekend. And I think that the police still remain very alert for that. Also, just as a reminder that it's the beginning of the football season as well. And I think the commissioner was talking about some of the people who've been arrested so far having past associations with football violence. So again, that's another reason why the police will want to keep tabs on this. And, basically, if there are anybody causing trouble, to stamp down on it immediately. Unfortunately, what we call probably the biggest stopper of trouble is rain, and as we call it, PC rain does seem to be quite far away. So yeah, lots of hot evenings ahead in terms of weather and obviously tempers as well. So yeah, I would not want to say it's come to an end. But I think that people are now aware of, you're going to be arrested, you're going to go to prison. I mean, even if you haven't been sentenced, you're going to be remanded into prison. You're going to lose your job. We've seen people who've lost their jobs. We've seen people attacked in their prison cells. We've seen their mugshots released. We've seen details of their home address. So it is a kind of sobering thing that if you're going to go out there and you think that, you're just going to be a face in the crowd and you'll get away with it, that's not true. And we know the police also are going retrospectively back through CCTV and images on social media and, using facial recognition technology to match that up to people. So if you took part in this, there's a very strong likelihood that you're going to get a knock on the door.
Let's go to the ads. Coming up in part 2, The Standard's Emma Loffhagen discusses how Justin Timberlake went from pop's golden boy to DWI drama.
And it's in part of this wider reckoning of how we as a society treated female celebrities in the early noughties, this kind of really punitive tabloid culture that was very sexist. And people have been interrogating his role in that, particularly in relation to his relationship with Britney Spears.
The Standard podcast will be back in just a moment. Welcome back. Justin Timberlake kicks off the UK leg of his tour this week. What tour? The World Tour. But it's taking place in the shadow of controversy. In June, he was arrested in the Hamptons on suspicion of drinking and driving, and his bleary-eyed mugshot went viral around the globe. Last week, the pop star was forced to make a virtual appearance in a New York courtroom. Appearing via video link from Belgium, where he performed over the weekend, he pleaded not guilty to one charge of driving while intoxicated. It's the latest in a string of events over recent years, which has meant that pop's once golden boy has had a bit of a fall from grace. Our features journalist Emma Loffhagen has been looking into this for The Standard. Emma, where's it all gone wrong for Justin Timberlake?
So obviously Justin Timberlake had this impression of being a very universally beloved kind of ex-boy band sweetheart. He rose to fame in NSYNC and then he went solo and became this kind of millennial king of pop. And he is very uniquely talented at a time when pop was kind of populated by a lot of aging celebrities. And he just burst through the scene. He was very good at dancing, had this amazing vocal range, and he became this kind of golden boy in the pop world. But at the same time, he was kind of adjacent to a lot of scandals, but never seemed to face any repercussions for them, which has changed in the last few years. And it's in part of this wider reckoning of how we as a society treated female celebrities in the early noughties, this kind of really punitive tabloid culture that was very sexist. And people have been interrogating his role in that, particularly in relation to his relationship with Britney Spears. The pair dated for a few years from 1999 to 2002. And a couple of documentaries and Britney Spears' memoir have kind of shone a new light on Justin Timberlake's role in that celebrity culture that persecuted Britney Spears in particular. So there was a 2021 documentary framing Britney Spears, which interrogated Britney Spears' conservatorship. But a lot of fans picked up on the role that Justin Timberlake played in that celebrity culture, particularly with his music video Cry Me a River, which became very infamous in 2002 after the pair broke up because it perpetuated this rumour that Britney Spears had cheated on Justin Timberlake and kind of fueled the fire that the media started to persecute her. And then there was Britney Spears' 2023 memoir, which contained even more revelations, which fed that storm which had already picked up in 2021. So that was kind of where it all started to go wrong for him. And more recently, this year in June, he was then arrested for DWI, drinking with influence, during his world tour, which was kind of supposed to be this comeback tour for him.
Give us the details of the DWI incident. What do we know so far about that, and where are we up to with the legal proceedings?
So the DWI incident happened on the 18th of June this year. Things had kind of gone quiet on the Justin Timberlake PR front since the release of Britney Spears' memoir in 2023, until June 2024, when he was pulled over in Long Island for allegedly running a stop sign, veering out of lane, and then he was subsequently charged with DWI. So the officer who stopped him said he had bloodshot and glassy eyes, had a strong odour of alcoholic beverage, and was kind of slurring his speech, according to a charging document. And then there was this kind of now viral, infamous exchange reported by Page Six between Justin Timberlake and the arresting officer, which kind of sounds like comically scripted, because the officer didn't know who Justin Timberlake was, and Justin Timberlake said to him, "This is going to ruin the tour." The officer asked, "What tour?" And Justin Timberlake replied, "The world tour," which has spawned a litany of memes on Twitter or X and Instagram. So that was a couple of months ago. He was released without bail after being formally charged. And then last week, he was rearranged on that charge in a virtual court appearance, which he had to kind of zoom in from on that Belgium leg of his tour. He pleaded not guilty to the charge of driving while intoxicated. And he said after the arrest that it had been a really tough week. But that's where we're up to with that charge at the moment.
He's starting the UK leg of his world tour. Do we know if these controversies have impacted ticket sales at all?
So it's not clear whether his reputation has taken such a hit that his ticket sales have been affected. We do know that the UK leg of the tour isn't sold out. But again, there's no saying whether that is because of these revelations that have come out. But what is clear is that this tour was obviously supposed to be a sort of comeback tour for him, post the Britney Spears doc, post the Britney Spears memoir, and it just hasn't turned out like that because of this DWI charge, which has happened during the tour. And obviously he's had to take a pause from the tour to attend this virtual court hearing. And it's his first world tour in 5 years. So it's obviously a big event in his musical career. But yeah, it hasn't been this kind of reputation building event that he might have hoped for.
Do you think Justin Timberlake can bounce back from all this?
I think it's a tricky one. He's apologised for his role in kind of perpetuating this really nasty media culture towards Britney Spears. He apologised after that 2021 documentary came out. He also apologised for that infamous incident with Janet Jackson at the 2004 Super Bowl, when he kind of ripped her top off and exposed her breast, and then she subsequently got kind of all the media flack for that, and her career really stagnated and his continued to take off. So he has taken accountability on a couple of those points. So I'm sure that will help him rehabilitate his image. But yeah, it's unclear. I think the reckoning about the kind of sexist tabloid culture has been coming for a long time. And I think he probably has enough kind of cultural cachet to continue, being as popular as he is. He's still on a world tour, and he's clearly sold enough tickets for it to be viable. So it's not like he's been kind of cancelled. But yeah, I guess we'll have to see. And I think it also depends on his behaviour going forward. Obviously, this DWI charge is really not helping him. But yeah, hopefully if he can stay out of any more legal trouble, that will definitely help him rehabilitate his image.
You can read more about these stories and others in the Standard newspaper or on our website, standard.co.uk. And that's it from this episode. This podcast will be back tomorrow at 4 p.m.